Have you ever played a game that just took you completely by surprise? Because for me, one of those games is the one we're talking about today, Ender Lilies. Y'all, this game really had to grow on me. Much like the Blight infection that slowly ravages our titular character Lily, it was pretty slow goings at the outset for you, boy. At first, Ender Lilies felt super limited and clunky. It had a stunning art style and music, sure. While impressive, I felt it lacked the vibe of the greats. I was floundering on this one, y'all, I really was, but there was much more in store for me regarding AdGlobe and Livewire's 2021 freshman attempt. And here I sit nearly 30 hours and a shiny platinum trophy later, absolutely gobsmacked by what now stands as a modern personal favorite in the Metroidvania subgenre. How did this game go from
mid as all hell
to one of only 3 platinums that I've ever stuck around long enough to earn and put up on that mantle? Well, stick around and we're gonna find out. Now, Castlevania Symphony of the Night, released in 1998, was a revelation to 12-year-old me and still stands as the gold standard for the subgenre in many ways. I mean, between it and Super Metroid, the stage was set for that special kind of exploration and backtracking. And while many games attempt to channel the classics, just as many of those games falter. But there have been a few games that love to ape Symphony's format, not just in its steez, but in literal title. Now, first it was Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, the spiritual successor from the man himself, Koji Igarashi. And that's a game that I really tried to get into and couldn't, but you know, we're gonna save that for another video, y'all. I know. I'm sorry. I wanted to love it, I really did, but here we are. And then we have Ender Lilies, Quietus of the Night. I see what you did there. Now, this title alone speaks volumes. It's a clear homage to Symphony of the Night, but much cleverer than Bloodstained, in my opinion. Low-key, this game's mastery of the much coveted by us rappers that we all chase hit me the second that I looked up the definition of Quietus. But what does Quietus really mean? And how can this old-timey ass word help us crack the game's exterior shell? Well, it ain't just a word thrown into the title. It serves as the vantage through which we view 3 major aspects of the game: its narrative, its combat system, and its atmosphere. We'll call it vibe. So let's break that all down. Pay what you owe is an idea central to Ender Lilies' narrative. This game is set in the decaying kingdom of Land's End, a place once vibrant and protected by its noble knights and warriors. However, a catastrophic event known as the Reign of Death has brought forth a devastating curse called the Blight. Now, this mysterious plague spreads throughout the land, infecting and corrupting every living being. Once noble knights and protectors of the realm, these warriors have been driven to madness, their bodies twisted into grotesque forms, and their minds shackled by sorrow and regret. Now, players take on the role of Lily, a young priestess who awakens in a world overrun by this blight. She sets out to cleanse the blighted spirits of these fallen warriors, freeing them from their torment and putting them to a final rest. Along the way, Lily is joined by the spirits of the knights she purges, who give her strength as she continues her journey. However, much like in the Soul series, and unfortunately we're gonna have to make that comparison a couple times, so just bear with me. The story of Ender Lilies is not so clear-cut. Instead, it's revealed gradually through fragmented item descriptions, relics, and cryptic notes scattered in every corner of the world. Through them, you piece together the shit that went down in Land's End during these final stands before the Blight's inevitable takeover. Every item you find, every relic that you pick up tells a small part of a much larger narrative, a narrative about the rise and fall of the kingdom and the personal sacrifices made by its knights. Reading the description of an old broken sword might reveal a minute detail about a knight's lost love. Or a letter found in the ruins might hint at the desperation of a city as this infection closed in, engulfing everything and everyone that they know. Now, these small details turn every discovery into an impactful experience where the remnants you find in every nook and cranny tell more than any specific dialogue does. It might be a little played out method of drip feeding a story, but the item descriptions are so well written and I genuinely enjoyed learning about each unfortunate soul's demise. I also love it when a game does stuff like this, as it lets it play around with an unreliable narrator. It seems straightforward at first, but you usually have to piece the truth together from multiple sources that may be straight up lying or at least misstating the facts from their vantage point. This place has shades of Bloodborne's insanity, with once upstanding people ravaged by them crazy ass eyes.
Eyes, give me eyes.
Now, as Lily progresses, she uncovers more about the Blight's origin and how deeply it has corrupted everything. What's particularly haunting is how the Blight slowly takes over Lily's body, darkening her appearance as she absorbs a curse from the spirits that she purifies. By the end of the game, Lily must come to terms with her own fate, balancing the growing Blight within her while striving to save what remains of the kingdom. I thought it was a really cool and really subtle approach to visual storytelling here, because I didn't even notice the Blight growing on her at first, and then I looked up and I was like, wait, she's got like these tentacles flowing out of her and stuff. So it happens really, really gradually, and eventually you see it and you realize the toll that this fight is taking on your main character. Now, each knight that Lily faces was once critical to the realm's safety, but now they wander as blighted souls, tormented by their past failures. Their redemption only comes through death, but you know what? Don't let me get ahead of myself here. This idea of settling unfinished business isn't purely a narrative device. It's a way of transforming these encounters with faceless creatures into something that feels a lot more impactful. In a more literal sense, Quietus translates to removal from activity, especially death, which ties directly into the combat mechanics. Ender Lilies gameplay revolves around a familiar pacing that is slow, deliberate combat where every move can lead to a quick demise. And if you're like me, you will die a lot, an awful lot. Now, the general flow of the game is simple and pure Metroidvania. You start out weak as fuck and end up a goddess, or I guess in this case, a priestess. Now, there are no weapons or armor, which was kind of a bummer, but as you get further and further into the darkness that is Land's End, you will begin to unlock spirits, relics, and new moves that make the game feel so much better. Like, this was a huge game changer, literally. As I said earlier, I wasn't really enjoying the feel of Ender Lilies combat. Everything felt floaty. The dive animation looked goofy as shit, and because you're more controlling a spirit and not Lily directly, there's this slight delay in the button push and attacks that you gotta come to grips with. Now, you start with your main spirit, the Umbral Knight. He's basic and can swing his sword an infinite amount of times, with more attacks added as you upgrade from various souls that you pick up. You'll also have a dodge, or rather a dive, and a few paltry heals. It really ain't that fun at first, and I found myself sort of, feeling kind of bleh about it all. But listen, I've been playing this type of game since 1998 when Symphony came in and absolutely rocked my shit, so I knew that if I could stick with it, that I might eventually be rewarded. And rewarded I was. The game encourages you to master many of Lily's spirit allies. These are fallen knights, archers, mages, and giant fat bastards that do belly splashes who fight alongside her after being freed from their cursed existence. Now, many of these spirits you summon into battle have limited uses, and after you have enough of them built up, you can create up to 2 sets of 3 that can be switched on the fly. These allies provide various abilities, from melee attacks to ranged projectiles, but using them carelessly could lead to their temporary removal from the battlefield. There's a constant tension between action and silence, movement. Now there are 26 total of these spirits. Figuring out that perfect synergy between your two sets of 3 is really, truly satisfying. I will say though, while there are 26, once you kind of find that nice flow between 1 or 2 or 3 of them, I personally kind of stuck to those and had my secondary set for certain circumstances where I needed more range or whatever. But there are a lot of things to play around with, and I've seen different tier lists from people that lead me to believe that they're all viable to some degree, so try to experiment if you're feeling up to it. Now, by the end of the game, my first set had the Knight with a dope little 6-string combo, a long-ranged Executioner that got the drop on foes from behind, and a bird that follows you around, shooting enemies like a familiar in Castlevania. Like a familiar in Castle. Sorry, I was an attempt at a joke. Anyway, you also eventually get a new move called Last Rites, which allows some of the spirits to have a burst move akin to like Holy Cross that you get access to via an SP gauge that builds from you doing damage. Now, once you add some really inventive movement options that allow you to be more nimble than ever, you end up with a game with the right sort of power creep, as by the end, you're double jumping, parrying, dodging, and comboing shit to death. All right. Now, every battle feels like a delicate dance of survival. One wrong step and you'll face your own Quietus. A harsh but fitting consequence in a world where death is ever present. This rhythm of action and stillness, life and death, creates a gameplay loop that's challenging but also invigorating. And this definitely isn't the hardest game of its type, with no real consequences for your passing. You don't lose souls or have to track down any resources when you fall in battle. So while death might happen relatively often, it won't set you back. And at least on the PS5, loading was instantaneous. Now, not to mention, on top of that, you get fast travel super early on, which is great. Now, this was a huge reason that I felt compelled to 100% this game. It's so easy to get around, and as you cross things off your map, they change to a different color, so you know that that room is cleared. This really helps you push your exploration and have a great time clearing these rooms. Now, as you get new movement and environment interactions, those high ledges and confounding doors become aha moments as you remember the rest stop near it and return, excited to see what lies beyond. Now, you do level up, but really doesn't do much. It almost seems like it's expected you'll be at level 100 by the end, as I was at or near 100 before I even decided to 100% this game. While you do get small increases to your damage, it's not nearly as important as the relics and upgrades to your spirits. Now, a very cool premise are the relics, which allow you to build out your Lily how you want. Prefer to do more damage at the cost of having less healing? Go for it. Are you just traversing and trying to track down new spots? Maybe load up some relics that increase movement and jump height, and a couple that let you get health back from your attacks. Now, between the spirits and the relics, the possibility to make your own character is there, even if it's not as robust as some other games in this genre. I also really enjoyed these boss fights. Most are very satisfying, though some are admittedly a pain in the dick. Now, all in all, even the toughest bosses only ended up taking me like less than a dozen tries or so. If you master the dodge timing for the most part, you're probably Gucci. Once I got down the iframes for the dodge, it was like kind of trivialized some of the fights, but there are some really fast bosses that will still get in your ass, so it ain't gonna be easy all the way through, even if you do get good. Now, every boss has 3 phases outside of the final boss, and I think there's a great buildup of tension through each phase. As you pass into each different phase of the boss fight, it compounds the difficulties in their moveset and also sometimes their speed and how hard they hit. Plus, the music continues to build, giving a real epic feel to the festivities. I know I'm gonna stop trying to make Soulsborne references here soon, but Silva was giving me real Vicar Amelia feels. Julius was easy, but a lot of fun. And Ho near? Nah, bitch, Ho far.
Get over here and stop running, you little.
And of course, this ties into the game's difficulty. Now, much like games that inspired it, like the aforementioned Souls games or even Hollow Knight, Ender Lilies punishes recklessness. It demands that you respect death as an inevitable force, always looming, always watching. Now, I can't say I loved everything about the gameplay in this game. The map can be frustrating as fuck because it doesn't really give you much information. The lack of a significant leveling or equipment system seemed like a missed opportunity. And the last area is absolute bullshit. Number one bullshit with the worst music in the entire game. But all in all, this one is a grower and a shower. It's been a minute since I couldn't put down a game, so I promise you this. If Ender Lily clicks, it will CLICK
Click.
Now finally, we look at Quietus as, quote, something that quiets or oppresses. This is where the art, atmosphere, and music of Ender Lilies truly shines. The game is visually stunning. Like seriously, this is everything I wanted from Bloodstained, and I'm not gonna just keep shitting on it. But anyway, this game is filled with environments that speak to the decay and the repression. The entire kingdom falls silent, as though the Blight has forced the world into an absolute submission. Like, this is Dean Malenko levels of submission, bro. They got 1,000 holes for this bitch. You ain't getting out. There's desolation in every area with sparse dialogue, usually just between you and the Umbral Knight, and a hauntingly beautiful soundtrack composed by Mili, an indie Japanese group known for their ethereal music. They expertly blend classical, electronic, and ghostly music, creating an otherworldly atmosphere that matches the game's somber tone to a T. There are countless beautiful tracks in here, but I honestly gotta highlight and shout out a few of my favorites. North starts with a single repetitive piano note, as heavy hammer action from an accompanying piano line brings in absolutely chilling melody on top. Eventually, these cold, chilling strings creep in, finally giving way to a soft bass tone and a gorgeously lush upper string section, giving way to a staccato violin that pushes higher and higher, giving more of a hopeful and self-assured feel. You can feel the march upward, and it fits in wonderfully with the setting of the area that you hear this in. Debris and Bugs combines this lush synth and string work with a really dope, halftime stomp, clap, percussive sway. Now, boss battles in this game have multiple phases for the music, and honestly, I had a difficult time picking a favorite for that. But if you couldn't tell, Harmonious is probably my favorite jam, and it looks like it's also the most played song from this soundtrack on Spotify, so guess I'm not alone. Such a spacious piano with this huge reverb swell, a beautiful harpsichord that comes and these haunting vocal hums. It's like a beautiful toned down and somber waltz. It feels like an icy dance with death itself. Now, if you picked out the sample of my track in the background, give yourself exactly 5 healing prayers and comment "End it, Lily" down below. If I get enough love, it might just end up being the next single over on my personal Spotify. You're a legend. Now, the music is often melancholic, filled with these soft piano melodies and haunting vocals that amplify the sense of repression, sorrow, sadness, and just reflection. In a world where words are often unnecessary, the silence is just as telling as the music itself. Now, oddly enough, my 2 least favorite tracks in the game were the areas I got stuck in the longest. These were the catacombs and the final area music.
They both suck.
First of all, they're way too short and too loopy, and they low-key drove me insane, like I was one of these Poor bastards. They really jump out as being uniquely bad within an incredible soundtrack otherwise, so I don't know what Mili was up to with these little loops. Maybe they just didn't have enough time to put it all together, so hard pass on those two, but everything else, man, go check that soundtrack out. Now, in terms of visual style, I feel like Ender Lilies is like this combination of Child of Light, which is a game that you also need to check out, and Vanillaware games such as Odin Sphere. Much like these titles, Ender Lilies boasts a hand-drawn art style that feels like stepping into a dark, beautifully painted storybook. I mean, it should be clear from prior games on this channel that I love pixel art, don't get me wrong, but I appreciate that this game does something a little different. From castle ramparts to blight infested caves to beautiful snowy vistas, this game builds a palette that is equal parts muted and vibrantly gorgeous. The juxtaposition of Lily against these backgrounds that are soft, glowing, and intricately detailed give this game a sense of ethereal beauty, even in its darkest moments. The art, music, and overall feeling do the absolute most to embolden all the themes of Ender Lilies. The truth is hidden beneath layers and layers of silence, and it's up to you, the player, to uncover it. In the end, Quietus is more than just a poetic flourish. In the title of Ender Lilies, it strikes to the very heart of what this game is. Whether through the story's finality and the debts paid, combat's death-driven mechanics, or the world's quiet, reflective, repressive state, Ender Lilies embraces the concepts in every facet of its game design. It's a game that thrives on its silence, on what's left unsaid, and it's all the more powerful because of it. Now, if you're a fan of highly atmospheric games that challenge you both emotionally and mechanically, Ender Lilies is definitely worth your time, cause dog, as I rolled the credits on Ending C, seeing that platinum trophy spin up on my screen, I knew that those nearly 30 hours would go down. Some of my favorites in 2024, and some of my favorites in at least the past few years. This may not go down as the greatest Metroidvania ever, but as a player who has played dozens and dozens and dozens of them at this point, I can say Ender Lilies is absolutely worth your time. And it kind of fell under the radar, so I'm gonna stand on business and tell y'all that you need to play. It remains a shining example of how to pay homage to the style while striking out on your own. I can't wait to see what's next. So join me in the other 10%-ish by going for this game's platinum trophy.
I can't wait to see what's next.
Oh shit.
Great news! We will be getting a sequel very, very soon. A trailer for Ender Magnolia dropped recently, and I must say, I couldn't have picked a better time to start this excellent new series now. Oh, fuck yeah. I love that for Ender. Like, looking forward to Ender, I don't know, Maple, Ender Oak, Ender Sumac, to all round it out by 2033. Gonna be a great 5-part series. I'm calling it now. Anywho, if you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of Ender Lilies, check out this video on another incredible indie Metroidvania right here. And can you help me reach 40,000 subscribers by my 40th birthday on September 27th, 2026? I know you wanna. Peace.